Well, I'm not too sure who annoyed Santa Claus here at Buxton, but unfortunately someone did. Around Christmas, our form so far has been pretty average. 3 games in a row, we had a 1-0 lead at half-time, and then went on to blow it all games that we really put ourselves in a position to be winning. So unfortunately quite a few drop points off the back of yesterday's episode, and it does mean that now Kidderminster Harriers have a game in hand and probably should be above us on that league table. Fingers crossed day, we can get a gap over them and stay in top spot. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 11 of Rookie to Royalty here on Shaun Does FM with Buxton FC. I hope doing well. Come up day, we've got 2 games to start the new year here at Buxton. First up, we take on Boston United on the verge of a playoff spot, albeit quite a way behind us. 16 points, hopefully can pick up a win over those guys at home. Before we take on Spennymoor Town off camera, and then Radcliffe, who currently sit in 4th, only 4 points behind us unfortunately, because our form off the back of yesterday's episode hasn't been too good, as that short intro would have let you guys know. But of course, at the end of last week, we had an FA Trophy game, which didn't go to plan. Our goalkeeper got injured, kind of proved costly. And also, we blew a lead when we took on Oxford City. So if you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. To be fair, if you go back and watch that Oxford City game, the exact same thing happened in the 2 games I've played off camera since then. Both of those, though, were away from home, which I suppose makes it a little bit less forgivable, but 2 draws against teams that I thought we should be beating. First up, Warrington Town. This, of course, the team that we took on our opening game here this season. A 1-1 draw. Di Girolamo gave us the lead there quite early, but for some reason could not put them away in the remaining 75 minutes. And with 5 minutes to go, Matty McDonald did grab an equaliser for the home team. Also, Charlie Pavey got injured, and it's quite a serious one too. So he now joins Eric Hanbury in the injury ward here at Buxton. But with their 1 shot on target, they score a goal. Reece Truman did okay in this game of 6.7 out defence, though not too good. Both our centre backs, and some drop points yet again from a winning position. And the exact same thing happened then when we took on FC United of Manchester. This is a lot worse considering these guys are down in the bottom half of the table. But the exact same situation, Tom Broadbent from a corner scoring there with 10 minutes to go in the first half. But then 10 minutes into the second, it was Dylan Halliwell that made it 1-1. To be fair, this game was a bit more even, but still, that's really one that we should have been winning considering where those guys were on the tables. All of a sudden, in a little bit of a form slump here at Buxton, but fingers crossed now we've got through Christmas, we can turn things around. Still not as disappointing as the result second up we had in yesterday's episode, considering that was off the back of an 11-day gap, but we've now drawn 3 games in a row and only picked up 1 win in our last 5, albeit that loss did come in that game where our goalkeeper did go off early. So I suppose that one is a little bit of an excuse next one. To be fair, also that Warrington Town game where Charlie Pavey got injured, we've made all our subs by that stage, and when he got injured, off the back of that was when Warrington Town did grab their winning goal. So to be fair, I've heard an excuse in that first game off camera, that Manchester one, though, not as many excuses, but it does mean that we're still on top of the National League North, but only because Kidderminster Harriers had a game get postponed. Otherwise, they could be above us. If they win that game in hand, they'll go to 55 points. All of a sudden, from what looked like going into that second game at the end of last week, quite a good position on top of the National League North. What could have been up to 8 points clear. Now we're probably going to slip down to second unless we can pick up some results while Kidderminster Harriers do drop points in their game in hand. All of a sudden, not going so well here at Buxton. Fingers crossed now we've got through Christmas. The new year can be a bit better for us here, albeit it is a busy period and we are dealing with a couple of injuries. Eric Hanbury still out with a broken hand for 12 days to 3 weeks. Don't expect them to be playing during the course of today's episode. Unfortunately, that does mean Reece Truman will keep his spot in goal. Also, Charlie Pavey, broken ribs in that draw against Warrington Town. He's out for a further 5 to 7 weeks. He's been very handy in that central attacking midfield role, so that's a bit disappointing. And adding to that, Jack Stobbs has got an injury, a pulled hamstring, and is out for a further 8 days to 3 weeks. That one did happen rather innocuously. Only an orange injury did pop up in that FC United of Manchester game. So unfortunately, a couple of injuries as well as some drop points in those last couple of games that we have played. So it does mean a bit of rotation for this first game of today's episode, as well as the fact that we actually played quite strong teams in those games that we did drop points in. So quite a few of our players here do come into this one on a heavy workload, so a little bit of rotation, the likes down there of Joseph Cunningham, Will Truman, and Ethan Fitzhugh not really able to play. If they did play, they'd be super injury prone, but hopefully can get through this next stretch okay. And then we hit another 11-day gap. Last time didn't do too good for us, considering that's when this form slump did start to happen. But as long as we get through our next 3 games, okay, I'm pretty sure we've got a big gap after that because we got knocked out so early of that FA trophy. Then things do start to break up a little bit more once we hit the middle of January. So hopefully can do well here in these 3 games. We'll make our way through during the course of today's episode, at least pick up some wins in these home ones against teams who are up there in terms of the table, and make sure that we keep top spot here, or at least a close second in behind Kidderminster Harriers in the National League North. And also you might have noticed, going back to the tactics screen, we have actually signed a new centre back just because he was available and quite cheap on a non-contract. JD Costello, formerly of Middlesbrough, does come in, a 19-year-old who does look quite tall, and to be fair, we could use that. We do look very weak from set pieces eerily here at the Bucks. Hopefully, if we need to use him, he'll do a decent job. But of course, we have got Scott Butler, and on loan from Wrexham, who probably is above him in the pecking order as well as Malachi Reeves. So he's a bit more of an emergency option just in case Scott Butler doesn't get much game time and gets recalled from loan, because of that he played 1 game that Manchester won and laid out a 6.4, so definitely not working his way into the matchday squad off the back of that performance is the Wrexham loanee, but hopefully can pick up a good result here as we take on Boston United. Last season these guys were up in the Vanarama National League. I thought they'd be quite good this season. As it turns out though, they've been a little bit average. Recent form actually has got them moving up the table a little bit more than where they have been for most of the season. They've been sitting at mid-table the large majority of this season, but now find themselves just inside of a playoff position where they were expected to finish. Recent form does include wins over Kingsland Town and Chester. Before then, they did lose to Kidderminster and Curzon Ashton, which to be fair is not a very good result with those guys down in 23rd, but the other results do make a bit more sense. Hopefully we can put an end here to their slight resurgence in form and maybe knock them out of that playoff picture. I'd like to think this is a team that we can beat, because going back to that table, they're definitely in a bit of a second division now in this league. Top 6 teams all fighting, could argue, for that automatic promotion spot up to the Vanarama National League for next season. Hopefully we make it ours, despite that poor recent form that we do have already. Quite a few postponed games here on this match day. The bottom one probably impacts us the most. South Shields against Oxford City. Both those teams definitely in the title fight with those drop points that we've had off the back of that last episode. Fingers crossed we can bounce back first up here in today's episode and get back in the green here with this Buxton team, albeit quite a bit of rotation. Also, Ashley Eastham is retiring now come the end of the season. So that Costello signing will work out eventually, just maybe not for the remainder of the season. Might be more useful going into the next one, provided we are still here at Buxton. Fingers crossed too. We will be in the Vanarama National League, but a couple of changes going into this game. Obviously, Reece Truman is still in goal. Matt Yates there at right back. Lindley and Elliott are in midfield. Also, attacking midfield-wise, Osborne out right with that injury to Stobbs. We've got Papaga at left wing, Alamo in central attacking midfield because Caden Kelly on a heavy workload. So Ryan Viggers gets a crack up front. So quite a few changes compared to what we'd like to put out here when we take on a decent team inside of that playoff picture. But as I said, they're a fair way behind the team, even in 6th, and about 16 points behind us. So I'm hopeful this is a team we can beat. We beat them early this season away from home, I believe. Either that or we picked up a draw. So hopefully back here at the Tarmac Silverlands, we can pick up a result, albeit they do have an early corner here in their favour, and they don't quite take advantage of it. They then get a shot off there on the edge of the box, but thankfully I think Truman there came up with a save. Indeed it was, because he's now bumped up to a 7.1. Otherwise we're going to say that must have come off the woodwork. But early stages here, it is Boston on the front foot. So all of a sudden, our form here at the Bucks has gone to poop a little bit here since we've hit this Christmas New Year period. A bit concerning, as it did come off the back of a nice 11-day gap where we did rest everyone. Obviously now we've got lots of tired players, a big busy period here, especially in the Vanarama National League North around Christmas and New Year. But thankfully that early surge that Boston had so far hasn't paid off for them. But as I say that, they've now got a throw in here inside the final third weeter. We'll pull that one back there. I think it was for Mahoney, but thankfully that one comes off the woodworks. A couple of good chances now there for Buxton to open the scoring in this first half. So far it looks like it's been one-way traffic, but now we get a chance here from set piece. We go near post, and Tom Broadbent, who all of a sudden is looking like the former centre-back here at the club, puts that one away, and we kind of even here. Boston, we take a 1-0 lead. Fingers crossed we get some luck here in this game off the back of a couple of pretty filthy draws that we've suffered off the back of having a 1-0 lead at halftime. Unfortunately, though, might be a chance here for Boston to grab an equaliser before halftime. Unfortunately, Yates doesn't win the race to that ball. Truman goes outside the box there briefly, was worried what he might do, but thankfully did find Eastham as he should have. Now we move it to our left-hand side, albeit not too long. Broadbent will get that ball back, picks out Lindley there in midfield. The Ginger Ninja just do enough there to keep that ball down our right-hand side. So far, holding on here well to the pill in this highlight. Some good short passing. Bapaga will get in behind. He goes down on what looked like a pretty clean tackle, and it's a penalty. Girolamo should get a chance here to make it 2-0, despite the fact we've done very little in this first half. It's a little bit there of a chip penalty, sends the goalkeeper to his left, puts it straight down the middle, and we make it 2-0. So thankfully Molyneux there did not read that chip effort there from Girolamo. To be fair, it's not the most obvious chip, so I suppose you can kind of see why he wouldn't have reacted to that, but still, it's a very cheeky penalty considering our form of late has not been that good. But thankfully, our 2 shots on target, we've made them count. But really, that was a pretty average first half. We'll tell the guys it's going well, but I think you can do better, and hopefully that's what will happen here in the second half. But seeing as we're winning, we won't make any changes at all. Everyone out there on a decent enough rating, and with all the rotation we're doing for this game, I'll be quite happy with 3 points. In fact, I'll be very happy with 3 points. This is probably a game where I would have taken a draw considering our recent form, but 2-0 up here early in the second half. A chance there, I think it was to Elliott. Unfortunately, he puts that one over the crossbar, but still, this has been going pretty well ever since that goal, which Broadbent did score. Let's hope it continues, and maybe we can score one more goal, put this game to bed, and then consider taking off some players who might be in need of a rest. We go near post again, and Broadbent nearly picks up a double. Unfortunately, that time just on the wrong side of the woodwork. A couple of players out there on 6.4s, but considering that all of a sudden it looks like we're on the front foot, we won't do anything just yet. But now a couple of players drop down to Red Hearts. Lindley and Broadbent. Lindley will take off Kirby. To be fair, he's quite injury prone, but will risk it for the rest of this game. Only 15 or so minutes left, and also let's take off Broadbent having a very good game for Malachi Reeve. He'll go out right at centre back. Eastham can go out left, considering that Reeve can do a job at right back for us. There's 2 of our 3 subs, and now Tom Elliott picks up a yellow card, and Jake Lee goes down to a red heart. But thankfully, Caden Kelly on the bench can do a job in central midfield, so I think that's a safe option there for our final sub. Also, while we're here, we might be a bit more disciplined and start time waste a little bit and tell our goalkeeper to slow the pace down, because this will be 3 big points to hopefully get us back on track and maybe make the most of a potential Kidderminster Harriers slip up here with that game in hand, which they do have now. We've made our way the final 5 minutes of this one. Let's time waste even more, but thankfully that little surge we had there just before half time is proving important with this 2-0 lead. But now a corner there to Boston, thankfully head that one away, and Girolamo can't quite win the race to that ball. A long range effort, but thankfully it just goes wide of that top left corner. A couple of good chances now in this game of Boston, but just not quite hit the target, and now we win that ball there through Yates down our right hand side. Girolamo will find Kelly, actually doing quite well there for us in central attacking midfield. We pull it back there to Bapaga, who picks out Girolamo, who will score his 18th goal of the season, his first goal in a little while for us now here at the Bucks. To be fair, putting him in central attacking midfield might be quite useful to find this goal scoring touch, and if it is, that could be something we can do while we are light on central attacking midfielders, while Charlie Pavey is out with that slightly more long-term injury than the other 2 players who are out currently, and Hanbury as well as Stobbs. To be fair, that could be quite useful. As now Boston try and get something going late, but a poor pass does mean we get on the attack there through Yates. We try and float that one far post through Osborne. We somehow get it forward to Ryan Viggers, and I think they've given up late here. In this game, we make it 4-0. Ryan Viggers gets himself on the score sheet. Papaga also picks up an assist, so those two should get bumped up from their 6.4 ratings. We tried to find their Viggers from that first ball, headed away, but Papaga puts it back in the mixer, and somehow Viggers there is unmarked and can put that one past Molyneux. And two late surges in both halves in this game do mean that we pick up a 4-0 win, which, to be fair, does feel a little bit flattering. Early on in that game, Boston were all over us. Thankfully, their goalkeeper had an absolute shocker in Reece Truman, a 7.6, probably the highest rating he's ever had in semi-professional football in a big game. As a player, so that is quite useful as we'll just make our way forward here through the processing and the game saving to see what that does to the league table. Fingers crossed we do stay on top above Kidderminster Harriers. And indeed that is the case, although they did pick up a 1-0 win there, a late goal to beat Southport. Did think that that might be a game that they drop points, and if it was away from home, maybe that would be the case. But unfortunately, they're still hot on our tails. But thankfully, our first win in a couple of games there with a 4-0 thrashing of Boston. Fingers crossed we can pick up a similar result away at Spennymoor before we come back to take on Radcliffe. And unfortunately, we've gone back to our drawing ways here at Buxton off the back of that nice win over Boston. A 0-0 here away at Spennymoor, but stats-wise, really should have won this game. They had no shots on target. We had only 4. We did hit the post late, thanks to Curtin, who came off the bench. It was an open net too. Really should have won that game 1-0, even based on that highlight level and the stats. From this game, we played the exact same starting lineup that did beat Boston. Unfortunately, this time, they couldn't score a goal, so probably wasted some goals there in that 4-0 win that we did just pick up before. But unfortunately, some more drop points. But to be fair, that one on the road against the team who are quite decently placed in 9th on the league table have slipped down during the course of today's episode. But that result, not as bad as some others that we have had recently, in particular that Manchester one, and of course Oxford City back at home at the end of last week. But it does mean now that our recent form looks actually even worse, despite that win we did pick up over Boston. It's now only 2 wins in the last month or so, so that's a bit concerning, but thankfully no losses so far in the league. But it does mean now that league table, we are joint with Kidderminster. With that draw that we had, they picked up a win on that same match day. Let's find it was 2-0 over Alfreton down in 19th. So we're joint on points with them, and they've still got that game in hand. So unfortunately, we need to keep on picking up results here to keep top spot in the league, and even then Kidderminster could go above us when they eventually do play that game in hand. And also, Radcliffe now have worked their way up to 3rd. If they beat us here, that makes things up the top of the table very, very close indeed. So certainly trying to bottle things here in this National League North, albeit still with a fair way to go. We could probably recover if we need to. But of course, Radcliffe, we played them late last season, one of our first games in charge. They beat us in this away game. We then played them earlier this season away again and kind of FM them. They did actually look a bit better than us in that game, but somehow did pick up a win. So fingers crossed here back at home we can get a result against them. But they are currently sitting about where they were expected to in 3rd in their recent form. Obviously quite good having made their way up that table. Just a little bit of a big win there over Kingsland Town. Also beat Chester, and around that a 2-2 draw with Banbury. So hopefully can bring it in there to their good form, kind of similar what we did there first up today when we took on Boston. But it's going to be an interesting matchup for us, this one, now under a little bit of pressure with that table. Kidderminster Harriers hot on our heels, and with that game in hand, so not going too well for us all of a sudden here at Buxton, with just that one promotion spot guaranteed in the Vanarama National League North. Otherwise, if they do make the most of that game in hand, we would then need to beat them. To be fair, that's probably the game we're going to come back for in tomorrow's episode in February. It's the only game that really we should be struggling in based on our form so far this season. But all of a sudden, our recent form, not too good. So fingers crossed we can regain it before we take on Kidderminster in that top of the table clash, which will be coming up in tomorrow's episode. In terms of us going into this game, obviously Truman is still in gold. Hanbury not quite back from injury yet. Also, we've got Osborne at right wing and Elliot and Cam in this game, because unfortunately we do need to rest some players, so he's going to play in Cam for this one. But apart from that, it's our regular best 11. So to be fair, it's a much stronger team than we've put out for a fair while now with this Buxton lineup. And off the back of this game, another 11-day gap, so fingers crossed then we can attack the rest of the season in some better form than we've had off the back of Christmas. A good early chance there though for Radcliffe looking for the top right corner from that free kick, but thankfully that one does clip the woodwork, so we get away there with an early chance quite similar what did happen in that Boston game. Let's hope we can turn things around here and pick up a similar result, because that one was certainly a little bit flattering. But another free kick chance here for Radcliffe, so they've definitely been on the front foot early in this game. That one again does come off the woodwork, goes back out there to O'Brien, who thankfully skies it, so a couple of good chances there for Radcliffe, albeit from set pieces. A fair way out, but so far up to very little. And now we're going to be forced into a sub. Jake Leake on an orange injury will play things safe. Nathan Giblin can come on for him. To be fair, his recent form actually being quite good. I think a 7 point something. So let's see what he can do here at left back for the remainder of this first half. Unfortunately, I didn't actually put a centre back on the bench for this game, which might be a mistake, but a poor pass there does mean that we finally do get on the attack. Di Girolamo with a chance, but unfortunately can't quite pick out the bottom left corner. Bevan comes up there with a save, so still 0-0, unfortunately, unlike that previous game, can't quite take the lead there. Before half-time, they cleared away there to Radcliffe from that corner as Kidderminster, I thought, were leading against Chorley. Maybe not. Lots of goals are popping up now from that game. Chorley are in front. That could be a really good result for us here if we can pick up a win in this game. Even a draw, that will at least see us stay on top of the table. So hopefully Chorley can beat Kidderminster, and we can hopefully find a win here at home against Radcliffe. But so far, this has been a pretty poor performance. I think here we're going to tell them that we really need to be better in front of goal. No subs at halftime, or we used one up there in the first half with that slight injury to Jake Leake. Fingers crossed that's not too serious. Lots of players on some poor ratings, but we'll give them a rev up there at halftime and see if that does the trick. In the second half, it doesn't, so we'll demand more as Tom Leake scores there from a free kick. To be fair, that's been coming, and we'll start the second half just like we did that first one, but this time, Radcliffe, they make the most of it. Truman there probably should do better at his near post, but really, that's some pretty average set-piece defence from us yet again here with this Buxton team. We go 1-0 down when we have a really good chance to actually get a gap on Kidderminster, so that'll be frustrating if we do lose this game. And now, Sam Osborne with an injury. Thankfully, Stobbs with that 11-day gap should be back in time for the next game that we do play. But Papagos to come on here with the second sub that we do have in this game. So already a couple of subs that maybe we wouldn't have liked to make have been forced upon us with injuries we've suffered in this game. And so far, we're not doing a heck of a lot here in terms of a take about to make our way into the final 20 of this game. Di Girolamo on a 6.3 up front. I think that's the worst rating of anyone still out there. So we're going to bring Viggers on here up front and see what he can do leading the line, because still only one goal behind. If we can get something from this game and Chorley hold on to that result against Kidderminster Harriers, that would still be pretty good for us. We'd make sure that Radcliffe aren't too close behind us. And now we'll go attacking with only 10 minutes left. And also, let's change some roles, because so far we've done very little in terms of attack apart from that chance just before halftime, which was saved, the Di Girolamo effort that could have gone in that bottom left corner. So here we're going to put as many players as we can onto attack here late on and see if that changes the momentum in this game and we can maybe pick up an equaliser. But so far, definitely been second best in this game, much like was the case the first time we took these guys on this season. But this time they're making it count, quite frustratingly again, at home. But unfortunately, a poor clearance there does mean that Radcliffe can get back on the attack, and it's a lovely first time strike there from Thomas Hill, his first goal of the season on debut. So a new signing there for Radcliffe. Off the back of that, we did just try there briefly. Bapaga as an inside forward, did just think that might work, considering it usually does there with fullbacks on attack. Might have been useful having someone cutting in there on that right hand side, but I'm officially sick of this game. We've been blimmin' average, and we're 2-0 down at home. So really in the poor run of form here all of a sudden at Buxton. We've picked up one win in our last couple of games over that Christmas New Year period and dropped quite a few points at home, capped off with that 2-0 loss to Radcliffe, which will mean they only go 1 point behind us. And Kidderminster, if they turn around that deficit against Chorley, they could go above us as well. So certainly not a good result. That we'll just go forward and see how the table does look off the back of that. And thankfully, Kidderminster did suffer a defeat for the first time in a long time, so we are still on top of the Vanarama National League North, but still, they have that game in hand, so a win there would have been really useful, especially because Radcliffe now are only 1 point behind, getting very tight there at the top of the National League North with all these drop points over this Christmas New Year period. So unfortunately couldn't back up that good result first up against Buxton today. We dropped points against Spennymoor and then a 2-0 defeat at home against Radcliffe, so things now are very tight at the top of the National League North, and Kidderminster still have that game in hand. Unfortunately, couldn't make the most of their slip up because we lose to Radcliffe, so we're still on top, but not too sure how long it will last, especially because our recent form now does look really, really poor. That 6 game stint we had there over Christmas and New Year, we've picked up 7 points from 6 games, so really, that's not good enough for a team at the top of the table. To be fair, if we now bounce back, it might not be that bad. If it's our poor run of form this entire season, it will be okay, because still, we've picked up points from most games. Just really annoying, because there were a couple of games there, those ones around the Christmas period, that we were in really good positions to win, and we blew it. Not quite the case in today's one, but we did just find there a little bit of a goal-scoring drought off the back of that 4-0 win over Buxton. And also a quick check on the injuries we suffered in that game. Sam Osborne, a pulled hamstring, 2 to 5 weeks, but thankfully, as I said, we should get Stobbs back in time for our next game in 11 days, so that one shouldn't be too impactful, because of course we've got him and also Curtin, who can do a job at right wing. Jake Leake, 2 to 4 weeks with a pulled hamstring as well, though, so a couple of pulled hamstrings in that most recent game. Leake actually, I thought was only an orange injury, but it's still quite serious. That means that Giblin will have to play the next game that we do play in the save, but lots of injuries all of a sudden, and it's kind of impacting our form here with the Bucks, but thankfully still on top. Just not too sure for how much longer, but that will do it for today's episode. Unfortunately, can't make the most of a couple of good winning opportunities, and we still in some poor form there over that New Year and Christmas period. If you enjoyed that episode though, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Now, I'll come back tomorrow. In terms of February, there's one game really that stands out from all the others, even including these ones coming off the back of this 11-day break that we have. We start to take on some teams here that we really should be beating based on their table position, and we've got a 1-week gap around most games now, which hopefully will stop that poor run of form and injury curse that we currently have. We take on some teams that are really in some average positions, apart from Kidderminster Harriers, in what now could be a massive game with that game in hand they do have on us. We might need to actually win that one at home just to make sure we get parity with those guys on top of the table. So I think tomorrow we might be coming back for just a 1-game episode, Kidderminster Harriers, and hopefully we can beat them before we take on some other teams and behind them in our run home. But to be fair, it does look like quite a kind run home, considering that there aren't too many teams inside of that playoff picture. Banbury United and Southport, but then we get a couple more easy games around South Shields. Now last month, honestly, I'll be disappointed if we don't win most of those games, as long as, of course, we can put an end to that poor run of form that we have just had. But we'll come back tomorrow, probably to that Kidderminster game, seeing it's the only big one we've got there in the month of February. So until then, we're fingers crossed we can pick up a much needed win. Thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.